going to begin our service, as we have been for the last 6 weeks, with a devotional thought or idea concerning the creation of God, of all things, everything that He made, put together, and ordained in the very beginning, before there was anything. And of course, we know that there are secular ideas, there are what's called the ideas of naturalism, that believe other things other than that God created. And as we said in the past, that gained traction in the late 17, early 1800s, primarily because of the writings of a person by the name of, and I'm not going to say Darwin, but Charles Lyell, who Darwin was a great student of, as well as Darwin's grandfather, who was also a naturalist. They did not believe the Bible. They didn't believe the claims of Christianity. For 1840 years after the crucifixion of Christ, it was commonly understood in educated circles around the world that in the beginning God created. That was understood, that was received, that was recognized. But then came those after the stripe of Charles Lyell, who, as it said in Romans 1, and we looked at that last week, that they no longer wanted to retain a knowledge of God in their minds and their thinking. And that's dangerous. That's when trouble starts. When you remove God from His universe, when you remove God from believing Him in what He says He did in the beginning, in order to adopt another philosophy that would allow you then to make a comprehensive plan and call it scientific, that regards not God, but the, how shall we put it here, the, I don't want to say inclination, but the, the building up of chance, mere chance, that things happen by chance. And I've mentioned several times the Big Bang Theory, and the Big Bang Theory says that back in the beginning when there was nothing, somehow some little kernel of something just sort of happened. And in this little kernel is compressed all of the material to make all the matter in the world, and everything that could ever exist is compressed in this tiny little grain of sand, or maybe even something smaller. And that exploded and began to expand, and as it expanded, somehow all of the little tidbits of that grain formed all of the planets and the stars and of course the earth. And then there was splitting of some of those that created some of the others, and according to them, it's still expanding and still growing. Well, that's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches in the beginning God created, and He hung all the stars and all planets and all the heavenly bodies in one day at one time. They're there now. As Junior said a few weeks ago, if there is an expansion taking place, God's doing it.
God's doing it.
It's not, there is not a progressive creation going on. God created. Now, the secular argument, and I want to read you a paragraph out of one of my ancient college history books. I told you about my daughter, didn't you? She told me the only reason that I like history and I like to watch the History Channel is because I was there for so much of it. But let me read you just a short paragraph here, and this kind of sets up what the secular thinking is. Also, by the way, somewhere along the line, after all of this stuff just miraculously, and they won't use that word because that hints toward God, and they don't like God. But after all of these elements took shape, then somehow maybe from the water that was collected in the tails of comets, and see me later and I'll tell you why that can't happen, or other places in space, little droplets of water kind of oozed down to the earth and collected, and that's why we have water on the earth. And from that water then, life mysteriously appeared. And this is part of the prologue of a history book I had in college. It's secular, it's atheistic, and it's just perfect to learn from in Bible college, because we have to be confronted with error before we can defend it with truth. So it says 4 billion or more years ago, a flaming fragment of the sun burst loose and flew through space. This fragment, fast spinning and molten, became the planet Earth. At a much later time, a fragment of Earth shot skyward to form the moon. Had the moon stayed, probably the sea would now cover most of the globe. Hint. There's a hint that did once at the creation, when the earth was covered with water, before God made the dry land to appear. All right, continents and islands took shape, shifted, and reshaped themselves. Catch that. Themselves. Mysteriously on the warm, milky waters, life appeared from nothing. Some little amoeba was in the water, and the water then took that amoeba and turned it into maybe a two-celled creature, and that became a larger creature, and that became an even larger creature, until we finally see the animals evolving as Darwin and Lyell and some of the others speculated. Well, as I said, for over 1,800 years, that hasn't been the primary view of those who believe in God and believe the Word of God. I want to read to you a little bit of what the Jewish position in the first century was. And this is in the writings of Josephus, from the creation to the death of Isaac, this whole section is. But I'm only going to read you a small paragraph. See how familiar this is. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. When the earth did not come into sight, but was covered with thick darkness, and a wind moved upon its surface. Remember, we read in the Word of God that the Spirit of God brooded upon the face of the waters. That's what he's referring to here. God commanded that there should be light, and when that was made, he considered the whole mass and separated the light and the darkness. And the name he gave to the one was night, and to the other he called day. And he named the beginning of light and the time of rest, the evening and the morning. And this was indeed the first day. But Moses said it was only one day.